So I'm revisiting this from about a year ago. I asked a question, and I don't think anybody got what I was trying to invoke in the question on either side. But so I'm just going to review that and explain what I was hoping would come up and did not. So here, let's check it out.
I think that's something both debaters can agree on tonight. Any last words, Kent, to that question?
No, I agree. Well said.
Okay, so we're going to start winding it down with the last few questions here. Question, this one looks like it's for both. Question from Jamie Russell. I appreciate it. Question, can we measure age like other scientific measurements? Whoever wants to start.
Can we measure age? Yes. I'm a little confused by it. I mean, I think we all certainly at some level, no matter what model we're in, at some point, in some way of what we're arguing, at some level, we are accepting, axiomatically the idea of some form of uniformity. And, I think one of the challenges I would make, and it's something for me to unpack and unflush and not necessarily here at this time, and certainly something to look at a different way, but I would say that I would want us to be looking at things through a realm of consistent and logically applied uniformity, not just picking and choosing whatever fits the model and then just throwing it out simply because it doesn't fit the model and relying upon circular reasoning, which I think is fallacious in this case. I guess that's my best answer, I suppose.
I appreciate it, Smokey. And Dr. Hovind, if you had a response at all?
Well, as far as measuring age, when it comes to measuring the age of the earth, I think there are scientific ways to do that. I think there are scriptural ways to do that. And I think both point to about 6,000 years. If I told you this ink pen was 8,000 years old, you'd say, excuse me, it's made by Bic Corporation, and they didn't come around till after World War II. So it has to be after 1946. There would be ways to limit the age of this pen down to less than 8,000. I could make a claim it's 8,000, but I think you could quickly disprove that. The ball point in there, when the ball idea was developed, of rolling ink out rather than at the other kinds of pens they had. So I think I could scientifically prove it's not 8,000. I think I can scientifically prove the Earth cannot be billions of years old by the Earth slowing down in its spin, by the moon getting further away, by the sun burning up, by the population of the Earth, by the oceans getting saltier. So I think there are scientific limits that would say, look, you might want billions of years for your theory, but you can't have it. Okay, that's your pacifier. And as far as uniformitarianism, well, Peter warned us in the last time there would be scoffers who would say that all things are happening now the way they've always been happening. That's uniformity. This does not allow for miracles or for the flood. I think the flood was a natural, God did it, but God used water to drown the creatures. He could have just said everybody die except Noah. So God used nature. He hasn't created anything. It says in day 7, he finished his creation. Nothing's been created since then. But things have been altered, changed around. I take in food and take in oxygen and build cells. Sometimes a few too many. But so I think we've only rearranged stuff that God has already made.
So I feel like Hovind got kind of directed by the way Smokey answered the question. I was hoping I could have worded it better. I could have said it like, what are the assumptions in age measurements that are appealed to for the age of the Earth compared to other measurements? Like obviously volume, mass is an empirical measurement. My whole point was to just draw out the thing that gets missed or often forgotten, it seems like, in that when you're dating rocks, for instance, you have to compare parent-daughter isotope ratios and then understand the half-life of the parent isotope and look at the ratios. And there's isochron dating to make that more accurate. And I don't doubt that those measurements are accurate or that the half-life is anything different than what they say. And that's been uniform from the beginning of the universe. I don't really find a reason to doubt that. I do think they're sloppy sometimes to get the dates they want, and they can retest sometimes. But I think they. So the I don't doubt those things. So I just think people forget that they're not measuring age particles; they're measuring ratios, which has a slight sense of has a level of assumption built in about the process of the ratios over time. Um, it assumes no kind of contamination or something like that too, which is less likely in my mind. But so I was trying to invoke that sort of thing. But obviously, we all have to operate on like the answer Smokey gave is just kind of like a given, obviously, or either side. It's not a matter of questioning uniformitarianism. It's a matter of drawing out the distinction between age dating and the assumption that has to be made, as opposed to just measuring width, volume, height, mass, density. Those are obviously direct empirical measurements in the present. So they're not measuring particles that give you an age. There's no direct empirical way to do that. Obviously, you have to make some kind of assumption, whether reasonable or not. I think it's reasonable, but I think it's wrong. And then Hovind kind of got off, and that's fine. Yeah, I like the argument about dating. Like, if you find a treasure chest and you look at all the dates on the coins, and you can take the newest coin date and say, well, it had to be buried sometime after that date. So it's couldn't be older than the newest coin. Obviously, it's a way of limiting the date, and so that's why any dating method that limits the age is essentially, if it's a good enough measurement, is limiting the age. If you just because some method says like a long period of time, it's kind of like a maximum because there's going to be unknown factors, especially the deeper into time you go. But something like a limiting measurement seems to me to be a more powerful indicator of the maximum possible dating of the Earth, and there's lots of those, like you mentioned.